Hey, blanket boy, Sharam here. In this video, we are talking about the sense of worthlessness, feeling worthless, and what it means, getting over it, and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to share this from a personal perspective because maybe you might get something out of it. But to be honest, the sense of worthlessness that I have been feeling has been predominant over the last year or so. Now, what does it mean? For me, it meant that I would do things and feel pretty damn useless and worthless. So that might be in the workplace. It meant with certain friends, career wise, body wise, weight wise, all of this stuff. And before I even really knew what surrender was, I was basically doing it. I knew that if you'd follow me on Instagram earlier on, often I would talk about the only way to heal is to feel. But that was it. So last night I was at my night job, very much working very hard for the money, and that is one place where I often feel quite worthless. Now it makes this is quite an interesting parallel between what's happening with the coronavirus and stuff. I thought I would just share this from a perspective of that. But last night, as I was at my night job, surrendering to this feeling of worthlessness, surrendering to the grief that comes just from even feeling that. It's like, oh, why am I even feeling this in the first place, you know? That's why I talk about surrender a lot. It became very apparent to me that it's like the reason why we have feeling worthless to me is like a sense of grief. It's a very deep feeling of grief. When that happens, it's usually because we've let go. Like usually we feel grief when something is taken away from us. We feel grief when something is taken away from us. So in this case, like, you know, we grieve when someone dies, or grief when something's stolen from us. I really have noticed in people, especially myself, that we tend to have a huge amount of grief suppressed. We didn't know how to handle it, so we suppressed it. And how did we suppress it? We fucking lied to ourselves. We told ourselves that we were big. It's basically ego, you know, like to sum it up. Then, as I was processing this sense of worthlessness, it made me realize and appreciate that since I was no longer lying to myself, that I was this big, grand, lofty person, which in some ways is true, but in some ways, in the ways that the young child like Sharam would tell himself, is less true. I realized that the reason why we sometimes feel worthless, sometimes we feel grief, is to get back to the basics, is to get back to, I would refer to it as the minutia. And I don't even know if I'm using that word right, to be honest. The minutia of the nuance of what is going on in our heart. So when we process, or at least in this case, when I was processing a deep sense of worthlessness and grief, it's basically me letting up all of this deep sense of grief and worthlessness to come up, and then to ultimately, once that's released, once that's let go, once that's elevated, we have a higher perspective to realize that, no, wait, we are not worthless, or at least in that case, that's what's happening to me. I am not worthless. The fact that I am there is enough. The fact that people have me around is enough. It's tough pumping out these videos every day, or it was tough. It felt like I was getting nowhere. I've done this for years now. only in the last year where I've really truly understood, man, only this fucking year where I've truly understood surrender, have I realized that this, basically, there was a lot of grief that I was experiencing around producing videos and around coaching. That I used to think that I was only successful if I had X amount of views and this many subscribers and stuff like that. And I worked very hard to create this ecosystem so I could feel good about myself. Then I surrendered. Then I allowed myself to feel whatever was going on underneath. And guess what? Now it doesn't matter. I mean, I love you guys. I swear to God. People, you guys, you amazing jerks. You amazing people who watch these videos every day. It really means a lot to me. And I was never able to see that until now. So what I'm saying is, we sometimes have this sense of worthlessness and a sense of grief because we're unable to see the detail. We're unable to see where we are already successful. And that's the big takeaway from this video, is that sometimes we have to learn where we're already working. I used to say this to people all the fucking time, and you know what? Sometimes we've got to hear our own lessons. Start with what's already working. I'm worried, I was worried. I was like, oh, but I want to like sell coaching and I want to like, you like be Mr. on stage and all that junk. Guess what? Me being like, oh, I produced a video and I made no sales. What's up with that? I must be bad. But that's what we fucking do, right? So I surrender to the worthlessness, let myself fully feel worthless without trying to modify it or change it. And Allison, you're like, easier said than done. We'll politely fuck you. Then fucking do it and give it a go, and you'll see how easy it is. It's hard, but it's also easy. So surrender to that. I surrender to that, and as a salesperson, I then realize if I'm trying to sell something, I better start where it's already working, which is to realize that if I'm trying to sell something and someone clicks on my videos, they are in some way sold, and I am discounting that. Now it's time for the last usual rapid fire 2 minutes of this video. The rapid fire thing is, I feel like that's what the coronavirus has done, especially if you're in a place where it's like mega locked down, like I am. It's making us realize, like through fucking grief, like all the fugazi, like the lifestyle that we created just to feel good about ourselves is gone. So what's left? There's us and our goddamn emotions. And so for a lot of people, it's helping us dive into a really deep sense of the minutia. That's the only way that I can describe it. And I have no fucking clue if I'm using that word right or wrong. The minutia of what's going on, which is we're unable to appreciate what's actually happening. So for me during this time, I was like, oh, I've got nothing to talk about. I'm not doing anything grand and lofty. I've now seen the excitement more and more and more to a level of detail I didn't even think. The excitement in the mundane. It's like, what did you do today? I got out of bed, I did this, I made breakfast. Like, fuck, man, that was already an adventure, The other thing is sometimes I find my father hard to talk to. Let's get real. I know he's not going to watch this video, but fuck, I'll say this to his face. I find him hard to talk to. He treats his family differently to how he treats his friends. And my night job, I work with the motherfucker. Anyway, point of the story is that as I was surrendering to my feelings of, I can feel his cold shoulder towards me, and that grief that I felt around that, it made me realize that to appreciate the minutia, which is that his cold shoulder is still communication. And to let that momentum energy run, and we all shared a break together, and I've never experienced this before. This was last night. Never in my entire life have I experienced this before, but I connected with him like one of his friends. It was too much for me. After that, I was like, oh, I need a fucking break from this. I'm going to have a nap. But that's the truth. internal momentum needs to take its course, and we stop it when we discount what's already working for us, and that's the role of grief, getting down to the minutia. Thank you for watching. You're the best.